Now, we are going to be moving across to VA4 North, to a place that is very dear to the heart of a gentleman who has been the representative of VA4 North for a number of terms now, since 2006. And he is the Honorable Moses Musa Baptiste, and he is also the chairman of the St. Lucia Labour Party. This year also celebrating, just like the United Workers' Party, I think they'll be celebrating 70 years as a political party here in St. Lucia. How are you doing, sir? How is your Holy Thursday coming along?
Hi, good afternoon, colleagues, and good afternoon to all of our listeners and those who have joined us on social media. I am doing quite well, thank you. I'm very well, and I'm very happy to join you this afternoon. And let me say good afternoon in a very special way to the the constituents of VA4 North, people from all of the communities from 1A to, Savans Bay, Opicon, Pierrot, everywhere, Bellevue, VG, Kako, and Grace, all of the areas. So I want to wish everyone well, and I want to also join you in wishing everyone a happy Holy Week and happy Easter in the coming days. So I'm fine, thank you. I'm well, thank God. I'm very, very worried about my country and about my people, but I am doing well, thank you.
Wonderful. And of course, it is going to be a very difficult Easter for a lot of people. We're still grappling with COVID-19. We're still grappling with what has been called our third wave. The island CMO, in fact, called it a tidal wave in describing the past 3 months. We've seen over 90% of our cases within the past 3 months, as well as over 90% of our deaths, I believe, as well for the year 2021. So it certainly has not been a very easy past quarter for a lot of people here in St. Lucia. How has it been? How have people been coping in VA4 North?
Well, I must express my sincere condolences to the families of the 61 individuals who have passed away with COVID, reportedly with COVID-related conditions. This is very sad, and for a very small country, it is very, very sad that we have so many people who have passed away as a result of COVID-19 or issues related to COVID-19, as have been reported by the medical, by our health professionals. In VA4 North, just like the rest of the country, we have been impacted, just like everybody else, and we also have had deaths of individuals who reportedly have passed away because of COVID-19 related situations, and therefore the families are very. You can well imagine, families are in mourning. Relatives, seeking answers, can't really, make sense of what is happening. And when you listen to the stories of the families, when their loved ones went, for medical care and what happened, and it's really heartbreaking. And a number of our people also, in addition to the people from VA4 North who have had relatives of theirs who have passed away, we have a number of individuals like other parts of St. Lucia who have small businesses and people with shops and bars and so on who have suffered tremendously as a result of the protocols, and a number of individuals who work at the hotels and so on. A number of people who are either unemployed or underemployed, and therefore you can sense the strain. As a parliamentary representative, I've been a parliamentary representative since 2006, and I have never seen it. I've never had there's never been a time when you get a sense, you hear from so many individuals, people who were once gainfully employed,
right,
and people are really reeling from the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and people are continuing to ask for relief, continuing to ask for government which cares so that some relief can come to them. So, like other constituencies, we have suffered the impacts of COVID-19 in all kinds of ways, and our people in VA4 North continue to seek relief from this certainly very troubling time.
Now, a lot of persons would have perhaps gotten some assistance in the early period since we were shut down around April. I think eventually we saw a rollout of the NIC's income support program somewhere around the end of May into June, I think, or thereabouts. And that went up to, for a 6-month period, providing support perhaps up until about October, November. But since then, of course, there was that expectation that 2021 was going to bring some level of recovery and a return to normalcy. It hasn't really panned out in that way, especially given our own spike in numbers and very, very low traffic, very low tourism traffic as a result of closures in Canada and closures in the United Kingdom. So it's still a very, very difficult time for a lot of individuals.
Yeah, clearly. And I mean, any sensible government, let us look at the situation in VA4 North. A number of individuals in VA4 North are farmers, and we have quite a few fishers also in VA4 North. And you can well imagine that a rural constituency, a beautiful rural constituency like VA4 North, you can well imagine if you may call it the economic base of VA4 North would be made up of really farmers, people in fisheries, and you have a number of people into construction, and then you have a number of individuals who work in tourism or the restaurants and so on. And any sensible government, especially with this COVID-19 pandemic and the economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, would look to agriculture, the farmers, bananas and livestock farmers and the fishers, to provide them with some relief so that they can through their enterprise, that they can cause there to be monies flowing throughout the rural communities. But this is not what has happened. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, this government, because of you can see that the policies, instead of assisting farmers and fishers within the constituency of VA4 North and other parts of St. Lucia, their policies have actually been hurting farmers and fishers. It's like you wonder whether they really care about this whole COVID-19 pandemic and how it impacts fishers and farmers. Fishers, for example, continue to be squeezed with this $1.50 tax in the gas, per gallon of gas. The farmers, the banana farmers, and the situation with their payments, where a caring government would come in, especially with the COVID-19 situation, come in to assist the NFTO. And instead of that kind of policy, you have a government holding the NFTO by their throats and saying, if you don't give us the chairmanship, we are not going to help you to pay the farmers. Now, any government which behaves that way clearly does not understand the suffering of the producers, the fishers, within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. So again, it is like double whammy. Our people obviously have to follow the protocol, stay indoors, and do all of what they're doing. But the individuals from VA4 North who normally provided impetus to the local economy, the little shops and so on, when the fishers sell their fish and the farmers sell their bananas or their fruit or their livestock and so on, they would provide some kind of activity, some livelihood throughout the community of VA4 North and other rural communities, and we have this very serious problem, and it's directly related to the attitude and the kind of policies that this government, the policies that they have decided to employ.
Right. Now, we do know that, of course, a lot of farmers and fishers were not part of the NIC's relief program because they may not have been contributors to NIC. But there was a promised support, a 3-month support for persons who were not within that bracket that the government had said that they were going to provide. I think originally in the budget for 2020-2021, I think it was an amount of $24 million. Now, I've been hearing so many different figures as to how much support was actually provided in the end. Because I think we heard 8 million at one point. At a different point, we heard maybe 18. I don't know if you have heard a more reliable figure or what is the true figure. But clearly, whatever it was provided, it seemed not to have touched farmers and fishers, because I think we saw that scene outside of the Ministry of Agriculture. Miss Nancy Charles, who I think is also from your constituency, interestingly enough. I think she may have run against you at one point in time. She was there trying to placate farmers, suggesting that they were not really ever supposed to have gotten the $1,500 support, even though their names were actually down in the press releases as being recipients. What happened there? What went wrong?
Well, clearly, this government, this United Workers' Party government, has demonstrated that farmers and fishers and individuals such as, these groups of people clearly are not first when it comes to the idea of what development is all about. In this case, the fishers were not first. They were not thought of. I mean, the fishers had to go to castries. They had to actually, a group of them had to actually accost the ministers on their way to cabinet for them to receive some kind of attention. So it is very clear that based on the government's actions, that it's very clear to me and to many St. Lucians where the government places groups of individuals like farmers and fishers. And when the fishers, clearly protested, fishers were given a $500 contribution.
I think the protest was actually over the closure of the sector for a week, wasn't it?
Yes, for a week. But then that morphed into them receiving, being placated with $500 and so on. So clearly, it was not anything that was organized and thought of by the government. And up to now, the government has not assisted these producers, these entrepreneurs, these business people in any significant way. And clearly, if this was a government which really cared about the stability of the rural sector, and the stability not just of the rural sector, the stability of these producers and these business people, they would clearly support these people in a more tangible way, so that we have fewer social issues, negative social issues coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, very clearly, food security and so on is right up there when it comes to the way in which this government is treating farmers and fishers. And there are so many examples. If the meat processing plant, for example, at the Beauséjour site, if this meat processing plant was in operation, there are so many livestock farmers, small ruminant farmers and so on from Vieux-Fort North and the rest of the South, Bexon, and so many places in St. Lucia, who could have been earning incomes as a result of the operations of the meat processing plant. There you have a government, and instead of causing there to be a facility where our livestock farmers could earn a living, they handed it over to Tiwa King and DSH, and it is closed. And they promised the livestock farmers that almost immediately they would have constructed, or the DSH company enterprise would have constructed some kind of meat processing facility. And up to now, I mean, it's 8 to 10 weeks before the end of the 5-year term, and I don't see livestock farmers selling livestock ruminants and so on to any facility. So it is very clear that this government does not truly understand the way these, the fishers and farmers and livestock farmers, the importance of these various subsectors to the survival and to the resilience of the St. Lucian economy. And therefore, they choose instead to spend $40 million given to one contractor, another $50 million given to another contractor, $600 million to refurbish a terminal and the airport and so on. And all of these people, all of the producers, the traditional people who have kept our economies afloat and who have kept economic activity going, in the communities and so on, and keeping and ensuring we have foreign exchange with bananas and so on. All of these people are reeling, and you can well understand why in a constituency like G4 North, so many people are clamoring and suffering and calling out for assistance from a government which simply is not listening to them, simply does not care, and is going along its merry way with its own model of development, which is take all of the lands, give it to what we refer to as undeserving foreign enterprises at crazy rates, and hoping that this will generate economic activity. We have seen the results right there next to V4 North in V4 South with DSH and all of the promise of thousands of jobs and 400 horses and all of that. And we have seen all the lies are really bare now for us to see that this government is really about bluff and not about caring for the people of St. Lucia who actually help to generate stability within these communities and rural and rural enterprises and inner city enterprises to keep our communities going.
And as you speak of course, rural enterprise, I do recall there was a great big promise and a great big push towards bananas to France. That was a promise that came, I think, just on the eve of a general election nearly 5 years ago. It was made at the home of Sir Michael Chasney. We saw the now Prime Minister sitting down with a representative of the Martinique collective of banana producers, and that meeting that was captured. An interview was recorded and was promoted by the then opposition United Workers' Party. That bananas to France would have meant that banana producers would now be moving from a $25 per box to $35 per box, as well as production would rise, according to the Prime Minister, from 8,000 tons to 50 or 60,000, at least 50 or 60,000 tons. Clearly that has not materialized, but what is your take on the way forward? Because I think the last thing I heard from you was there some sort of a suggestion of bananas to Miami as well?
Yes, well, clearly the United Workers' Party, the Prime Minister and Minister Ezekiel Joseph, they have all over the years really misled the farmers. I continue to say that the Prime Minister and Minister Ezekiel Joseph misled the farmers, and they continue to mislead banana farmers. Okay, they indicated that there will be bananas to France, as you correctly indicated, and that we would be exporting 60,000 tons of bananas. And we knew all along that they were bluffing. We told the farmers of St. Lucia that they were bluffing, that this thing about 60,000 tons of bananas in an area of Black Sigatoka without proper management, we knew that was a bluff. And right now, we obviously the evidence is there. Very simply, the United Workers' Party government clearly is not interested in the development of the banana industry, and this is based on the evidence. Look at what has happened to Winfresh, where we had the Minister Ezekiel Joseph was a director on the board, and they actually had front seats. He actually had the front seat right there to witness and participate in the demise of Winfresh. And right now, they are trying, we know that they have failed with bananas, and they are trying to divert the country's attention away from the mismanagement of agriculture and the banana industry, and they are now trying to blame the National Fair Trade Organization. And so what they're trying to do is for the farmers and for people to refocus their attention and place their attention on the National Fair Trade Association, on Eustace Monroe's, and therefore people, they believe, will not blame them for the fiasco that is happening that is in the banana industry today.
But Mr. Jean-Baptiste, what I don't understand though is that something as significant as the collapse of Winfresh, it went very, very quietly. We didn't really get, I think it was just almost a side note by the Prime Minister outside of the Parliament one day. He just happened to mention it, I think, that Windfresh is going into administration. There was very little discussion about it. It seems a little strange that the farming sector has been so quiet about what is such a massive change and calamity within the farming sector. What's going on?
Well, I believe that this government, what they're clearly doing in all of the institutions that have, been put together to build a St. Lucian slash kind of regional, to build a kind of St. Lucian character. All of these institutions, this government has gone with a sledgehammer and ensured that these institutions, either through their inactions or through direct actions, that these institutions do not survive or do not continue, and that they use, whether it be persuasion or they use their connections to ensure that they hammer even the members, even they hammer them because they require support from the government, and therefore if you criticize me, if you come against me, you are not going to get financial support, and therefore your family suffers. You cannot get the payments for your bananas for over 5 weeks because you're going to criticize the government in relation to the Windfresh matter. And therefore, in some sectors, people have just, you can sense that in some sectors, people have just, their arms are broken, their feet are broken, and they are just sitting, and they are just hopeless. I mean, this same approach you can see right across the institutions in St. Lucia. This government came in, we speak about Windfresh, but let's look at the Fish Marketing Corporation. This government came in and they promised the fishers that they will have the best day, all of the fish will be purchased and they'll have the best operation. Right now, as we speak, the reports that I have suggest that yes, that fish is not being purchased at the Vieux-Fort Fisheries Complex by this company. And yesterday, the report that I have suggests that they were purchasing fish from fishers who came across from St. Vincent. Now I'm wondering whether these people who came across reportedly from St. Vincent were quarantined, whether the health officials gave them permission to come across, to purchase, to sell fish, and so on. I mean, even the gate where fishers from the south travels to sell the fish. This gate has been on the lock and key and in chains. That's another local institution. When you look at the Radio St. Lucia, this government has simply shut down Radio St. Lucia. And there are so many, the National Trust, when you look at what they've done with the National Trust, and you can go on and on and on. This government has simply used what it calls its kind of muscle might, its dictatorial kind of style to just trample on St. Lucian institutions. And this demise of Windfresh, you can sense by the attitude of the Prime Minister, you can sense by his attitude that he is not interested in the development of institutions, obviously that have the best interest of St. Lucia, the best interest of St. Lucian farmers, and he believes he must do it his way. He must have control of the National Fair Trade Association. And if they don't have control of the National Fair Trade Association, they're not going to help the farmers. And this has been the style of the government. You beat up St. Lucians, beat them up to a pulp, and hold them down and control them. This is what this is all about. And it goes across all institutions. It goes across all of the local institutions. And you have heard not only Labour Party politicians, parliamentarians, you have heard other professionals in St. Lucia speak to that kind of attitude of the government, and it's affecting not only Windfresh, the banana farmers, the livestock farmers, the fishers, people in the Radio St. Lucia, the National Trust, all over St. Lucia, all dots all over St. Lucia. You can see this government systematically breaking up our local institutions to have control, to have ultimate control of what goes on in St. Lucia, and therefore they can bring over their foreign friends, companies to use our NIC money. They don't really care about these things. They can use, our local assets to do what they want to do, and that is the kind of solution that they are continuing to develop.
Now, I want to come back to Windfresh a little bit more, because I'm not sure if persons still understand what is going on when we speak about Windfresh going into administration and now into liquidation. So, and I don't even know if people understand what Windfresh is. So maybe it would help to explain the role of Windfresh and what it was, and what is going to happen now that it's no longer around. I don't know if you might want to just explain that a little bit, please.
Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try my best to leave out all of the technical details and to explain. I'm going to try to explain it in a very simple way. That St. Lucians will recall that we had a company called Gist involved in our bananas in St. Lucia,
right,
in the valleys and so on.
Right.
And St. Lucians will recall all of this.
And that was a foreign company, a UK company.
A UK foreign company. And St. Lucians will recall all of these banana stems going to the Gist boat. And
right,
there's a lot around the Gist boat.
And Gist own the lands as well. They actually own,
Gist,
right.
Yeah, Gist own the lands. And then you had this moved into a situation where the islands, the governments of the Windward Islands, in partnership with the UK company, came together, and there was all of this research at Windburn and so on. So it's a kind of progression from a foreign-owned, entirely foreign-owned industry moving into the governments and the farmers and the people, not directly being involved, but you sense a progression of a company moving from entirely owned by foreign UK interests into a company that had interests of the governments of the Windward Islands, and you had the SLBC, which was the St. Lucia Banana Corporation, owning shares. The role of that company was to really market our fruit in the UK,
right,
market our bananas in the UK. But there was a wider role, and it's unfortunate that this wider role was never really fulfilled. But this Windfresh company also had the capacity, okay, to market other agricultural produce, not only fresh agricultural produce, but also processed agricultural produce.
So it could have played a role in the whole value added as well as diversification of the agriculture sector.
And some of that started. Some of it was unsuccessful, but some of that started. And so Windfresh gave us an opportunity, a foothold in the UK market at the time before Brexit and so on, in the European market, to actually be the vanguard for employment creation in the islands, whether it be fresh fruit, bananas, and so on, whether it be fair trade fruit. You talk about limes, you talk about, and not just St. Lucia, but you're talking about the whole Windward Islands and possibly the OECS. So Windfresh provided this.
So it was a vertical integration of the whole market chain.
Exactly.
Right.
So there was this opportunity, and Windfresh created this avenue for major leaps in agricultural development, not only in terms of the export of fresh fruit, bananas, and so on, as I said, but the value added. Okay, where you could have had other industries being developed around the OECS and the sub-region, and using Windfresh as the vehicle. I believe that obviously Windfresh got into some difficulty, and the government of St. Lucia, clearly the actions, they did not suggest that they wanted to save Windfresh, and Windfresh went into administration, where some of the company's assets and so on would have been sold to pay for certain debts, and then into liquidation.
But don't you think that was a fatal mistake, that to allow, especially given that St. Lucia is the only country exporting bananas to the United Kingdom right now?
Yes.
I think we have 33% of the share of Windfresh.
Yes.
And we allowed it to go down.
Well, clearly fatal. In fact, it speaks again to the mix, the kind of priorities of this government. It shows you directly what the government is about, because this government would cause or allow or make the conditions correct for a foreign company, Cabot, to access funds from the NIC.
$27 million loan.
Yeah. And they boast about, they've repaid it, and we're making something like $2 million on it. But there you have, and up to now, St. Lucians don't have any shares in. I'm not aware that St. Lucians have any shares in Cabot, or I'm not aware that the government of St. Lucia has any shares in Cabot.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Exactly, and now they're making millions and millions and millions of dollars. People from overseas purchasing our prime land and so on. But there you have a company, Windfresh, with the capability of being the vanguard for us out there in the UK market, a wonderful opportunity, and the government chooses to sit by or through its actions, allow this company to go into liquidation. And this was a golden opportunity for not only banana farmers, but we could have seen a whole revival of agriculture through value-added and agricultural industry and so on, agriculture-related industry, and all of that being channeled not only to the UK market, but throughout the region. And you have ships, you have the whole marketing chain and so on, and the government allow it to go, but they're going to allow 1,000 acres of our land to be taken up by DSH and foreign interests.
Right.
So it clearly shows what has happened to Windfresh. Clearly shows again the type of government that we have, that they don't really care about us. I mean, they don't really care. Windfresh can go. A Windfresh that could have benefited St. Lucian farmers, especially, look at what has happened to COVID, in the COVID-19 time. And all over the world, you read the experts and so on, they tell you, yes, St. Lucia, it's tourism, that's the bedrock of our economy now, but then our survival will depend on how quickly we can get agriculture and so on, and rural economies and so on to be revived, so that we can become resilient. Because
that banana dollar has a lot more spin than the tourism dollar. The tourism dollar has a lot more leakage. Nearly 85 cents of that tourism dollar is repatriated out of St. Lucia.
Yeah, some economists suggest 90 cents being repatriated, but clearly that's the case. And any economy, especially developing economies within the Caribbean, the OECS, and so on, if you look at what the governments have been doing, especially with the shock of the COVID-19 pandemic, a number of the progressive governments are quickly going to their farmers,
right,
and to their fishers and to producers and so on, and people who produce, not only farmers and fishers, but in people who produce craft, and people who produce our seamstresses and so on, and people, the producers, the creative people, they are going to these subsectors because the experts recognize that it will be difficult to revive these economies. Not maybe in the next 5 years or so you will see a true revival in tourism, but people must eat, and people must be clothed, and people must their minds, our consciousness, our minds must be sane, and therefore your artists, your creative people, your people who create social cohesion within communities, your community development officers, people like that, your psychologists, your nurses, your community health aid people. These are the people that creative governments around the region and around the world are knocking on their doors now to help us get out of this COVID-19 malaise. And it's going to take a while. And you see what's happening even with our protocols, where what we really, people are rebelling all over the place and so on, and the government feels that the best way is to the high hand of the law to arrest people and throw them down if they don't have a mask. But some other people can have massive parties on boats and that kind of thing. So really, in our situation, we should have been focusing more on agriculture, on fisheries, on communities in Vieux North and so on, in Denry North, and you have several communities in the Grosili area, in Babuno, and so on, where you have your farmers and so on. These people should be looked at differently and been given more attention, so that we can actually cause there to be some kind of resilience and some kind of stability within our communities where food is concerned and that kind of thing.
Honorable Moussa Baptiste, we're going to have to take a break for our weather at this time. When we come back, we continue to have that conversation. And of course, we're going to touch on a little bit about your constituency as well, what's going on down there.
Yes,
we'll be right back after this. And welcome back to the lunchroom. And we are speaking with the Honorable Moses Musa Baptiste, the MP for Vieux-Fort North and the chairman of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And we've been discussing bananas. And I want to take in just one clip, Mr. Baptiste, and that is actually coming from November of last year, where the Prime Minister is effectively talking about a rebranding of bananas. So I'd like you to listen to it, and of course all those listening, and then get your feedback on it. So let's take a listen to the Prime Minister back in November.
Prime Minister Alan Chasney remains optimistic that with the British tourists coming to St. Lucia following the current lockdown and then proceeding to Barbados, the establishment of a home port facility here comprising mainly UK visitors could see the creation of a new banana market.
Exposing them to our bananas and our brand, and for us to promote our own bananas, that we could make significant inroads in that market. And we're currently under negotiations with a major distributor in the UK that I believe shares that vision.
Added to that, Sainsbury and Waitrose British supermarkets remain very committed to supporting the local banana industry, but the country's banana quality control leaves a lot to be desired. According to Prime Minister Chasney, rejection of spoiled bananas in the UK comes at a very high cost to the local industry.
And I want to say that there are a lot of things that have to change in the industry. We have to do a better job of quality control. Can't wait to ship bananas to the UK, let them ripen and determine whether in fact that they have met the quality or not. Because the cost at rejecting that banana in the UK is much more expensive than if we have more confidence in the controls and the standards we have in St. Lucia in the first place, to make sure we minimize the amount of spoiled bananas.
Prime Minister Chasney reassured the nation of his government's commitment to reviving the banana industry. For the DBS News World, I'm Don Nicholas.
And thanks very much to DBS for that clip. Mr. Baptiste, what exactly is the Prime Minister talking about? I don't have the opportunity to ask him. He doesn't come on to programs like mine. But maybe you might be able to shine some light as to this new opportunity for rebranding and for sale of St. Lucian bananas. What is going on with that? Especially given at that time, November 2020, that's less than 5 months ago, I assume the liquidation of ripening rooms and assets of Windfresh were already going on.
Yeah, well, very, very correct, Calix. When you listen to the way the Prime Minister describes branding of bananas and he is working with a company in the UK and so on, that is all bluff. That is all bluff, and it may sound harsh, but this Prime Minister has a history of simply trying to bluff his way. That is bluff. I mean, the growing and marketing of bananas is these are highly specialized activities. And you heard in the Parliament when the Minister for Agriculture described the experience in trying he said they tried a shipment of bananas to France or through England, through the UK and so on, and that when they spoke to the marketers, it would not work because short fingers and long fingers were packed in the box, and they did not know that they required fingers of a certain length and so on. A lot of foolishness. And you see, the Prime Minister and the Minister for Agriculture use those things. They use language and terms, and if you don't follow it and if you don't check it out, you believe the language is smooth and nice, but this is just bluff. This is really bluff. The fact of the matter is this: in this year's estimates, there's $2.6 million or thereabout for the banana unit, which was established to monitor black sigatoka and so on, and a lot of that money goes into the payment of staff and so on. And the performance of this unit, you can look at the performance of this unit and compare it to the performance of the unit which was headed by Martin Satney, and it's night and day. And the issues of which the Prime Minister speak, these issues of ripening and so on, these are clearly technical issues that come back to the management of farms and the management of black sigatoka, which is a major issue. Since 2010, we have had black sigatoka in St. Lucia, and if you cannot have a successful banana industry or successful plantain subsector or bluego, or what we call macabu and so on, you cannot have these subsectors if you don't manage black sigatoka properly. And this government has failed in the proper management of black sigatoka. So the ripening he's talking about and so on in the UK, these are just phrases and words that he's using to bluff us, to try to bluff us. And this Prime Minister is not serious in relation to the branding of bananas. Because he's the same Prime Minister who told us that we would have 60,000 tons of bananas, and they already had a market in Martinique and France and that kind of thing.
But he also called you a dismal failure back in 2016 as a Minister for Agriculture. But I'm at this point in time, I'm trying to understand in November of 2020, speaking about rebranding of bananas, but I'm trying to place that against the backdrop of the Windfresh Stansted ripening facility was already being sold off. We farmers being owed over $8 million by Windfresh, not being paid. Government doesn't want to come in, even though it's a major shareholder of Windfresh, doesn't want to step in to provide that repayment for farmers. So I'm trying to understand this balance of dismal failure at this point in time.
Well, clearly, the facts at this stage speak for themselves. So far, since we left in 2016, we have not exported more tonnage of bananas to the UK than when I was Minister for Agriculture. And so everything this Prime Minister says about dismal failure, he says I was a failure as Minister for Agriculture. The Minister for Agriculture says that, but they can't prove it. I mean, clearly, when a Prime Minister talks about cocoa being a root crop, he better just stop talking about agriculture. I mean, and have the technical people speak for him and stop trying to bluff the people. People can read, and the thing about it these days, you can't hide behind these things. You go to Facebook, you Google these things, and people can find these things. So it is just, again, this Prime Minister trying to bluff people and tell them all kinds of things about agriculture, but they have failed. They have not delivered the goods. And bananas, while the banana industry will not be the glory days of 90,000 tons and so on, 4 million EC dollars every week. We will not see these glory days, but the banana industry continues to play a very important role. I mean, when you have $22 million coming into an economy, it is not the hundreds we had before, but it is still very, very important.
But are you not fearful that it's on its death knell, that at this point, with the loss of Windfresh, the loss of the infrastructure, the market presence over in the United Kingdom, it may very well be just simply relegated towards shipment of bananas to just neighboring countries? Is that what we may very well be facing, like all the other countries in the region, in the Windward Islands?
Well, clearly, St. Lucia stood its ground with the export of bananas for a very long time. We were the only ones exporting bananas to the UK. And the United Workers' Party has come in and they have killed the banana industry. They have built a coffin for the banana industry. Mr. Ezekiel Joseph and Mr. Alan Shastney, the two of them are solely responsible for the coffin which they have built for the St. Lucia banana industry. And they have placed the St. Lucia banana industry in this coffin, and they're about to close the lid on it. They don't really care based on the evidence, based on the actions, based on the kind of support that I see them giving, based on what they're saying, the directions that they want to take, based on the confusion and the bluff. They don't really care, I believe, with the families of these banana farmers. So they have built a coffin for the banana industry in St. Lucia, but I believe that there is still a lot of hope. I rather suspect, as you have said, that the shipment of bananas to the UK and to these markets may pose some challenges if we are not able to resolve the internal issues down here. What the United Workers' Party has done will make it very difficult for us. But the regional market and the local market, if we develop these markets, there is still a lot of hope for the banana industry in St. Lucia. And I am sure when we get into government, Honorable Philip J. Pierre will place priority on agriculture and the banana industry and the subsectors that are related to the banana industry will get its fair share of attention.
Now, Mr. Baptiste, in the last few minutes that we have, I want you to take a quick listen to a statement which was made last night by Senator Fortuna Belrose on a program, a UWP program on Sky Radio, where she's speaking about the importance of why constituencies like Castries East, and I suppose by extension VA4 North, need to become part of the government. Let's take a listen to this clip from Sky Radio.
Curfew on Sunday and Monday. What are your views on that, and why is that curfew? I would like you to explain that to me. And I also want to ask you, Ms. Belrose, to tell us a little about the health system. What is happening in light of the coronavirus, and there are so many complaints about the health system. The other thing I want to ask you as well is what are you doing in Castries East for the single mothers? People are hungry, Ms. Belrose. What are you providing to them? What are you giving to those single mothers who have those children? Why isn't the internet at the Touche Park working to facilitate
Sounds like I'm the representative.
those kids? Because it used to be working, Ms. Belrose. These are the things I want you to speak about. Thank you.
Very good. I enjoy every question of yours. And I just want to say on a number of them, the first one, you talked about the Prime Minister and myself walked in the boulevard. I mentioned earlier that when you elect a government, you elect them on the basis of the policies and programs that they set out. The people of Castries East categorically chose to reject the United Workers' Party.
Just hold the line, Paula.
Yes, I'm saying the people of Castries East chose categorically to reject the United Workers' Party at the last election. Yeah? 11 other constituencies said to the United Workers' Party, yes, we want to build a new St. Lucia with you, we are on the road with you, and we'll be working with you. And so the government sought to invest in those communities where they bought into the philosophy and thinking, you understand, of the government. It's very important that a community buys into the vision. When the Prime Minister came in, we just did a tour of the constituency. We made no promises. No promises at all were made. Because I'm a community worker and I understand when you raise people's expectations, the challenge it can pose for you.
Well, that there was a statement last night made by Ms. Fortuna Belrose. She's a sitting minister, I think, for culture and local government. And of course, she was a hopeful and is the endorsed candidate of the Castries East constituency for the United Workers' Party. Your thoughts on the statement by Mrs. Belrose, Mr. Baptiste?
Well, I want the people of V4 North to hear it, because Miss Belrose or Mrs. Belrose just confirmed what we have been saying in Parliament all along. We have been saying in Parliament that we have been pleading with the government to provide assistance, to provide the programs and the projects to our constituents. So the people of V4 North voted for Moses Baptiste and the St. Lucia Labour Party. And what Ms. Belrose is actually saying is that the government, what I believe she's saying, the perception, what she's conveying to me is that the government has punished the people of V4 North for voting for Moses Baptiste and the St. Lucia Labour Party. The same thing for...
Because they didn't share the philosophy. They didn't buy into the philosophy.
Yeah, because the people of V4 North don't share the philosophy of the United Workers' Party when the United Workers' Party wanted to build a new St. Lucia. Well, let me inform Ms. Belrose and the United Workers' Party that the people of V4 North did not share the philosophy, because right next to V4 North, the government has given 1,000 acres of land, okay, to the DSH, and right here in V4 North, they are charging the people of Opicon $10 a square foot for their land. So we will not share that philosophy of the government. The people of V4 North did not share the philosophy because they did not continue. They did not complete the St. Jude Hospital, blame Dr. Anthony and the Labour Party, and now it is about 8 weeks to their 5-year term, and they will not complete the St. Jude Hospital. Instead, they built some other monstrosity to say that they are building some other hospital. So that's why we did not share that philosophy. And while the elections are always challenging, the last one, was challenging, but the people of V4 North stood firm. So it's very unfortunate. I can go further to tell you that the experience that we are having in V4 North today, Ms. Belrose just confirmed it. So when we are asking for projects, for example, we had completed all of the infrastructure work in the Foncapesh water project. The pipes were laid. The pictures are there with me with holding pipes, laying pipes, and all of that kind of thing. But Parliament after Parliament sitting, I pleaded with the government. I spoke to Honorable Ezekiel Joseph personally in relation to the Fonkapesh Water Project. Had discussions with the chairman of WASCO, and thankfully he did return some of my calls, and we had some discussions. But the government did not purchase the pump and so on until now that elections are around. They have their candidate. So the Vieux-Fort North Constituency Council chairman and his members are going around with the UWP candidates to showcase projects which they are now trying to say that their candidate is doing. But it is taxpayers' money. And so what Mrs. Belrose has described is a vindictive and callous attitude and behavior of this government. And they're going around saying, if you don't vote for me, you'll not get the roads. Vote for me, and then you'll get the roads. But I simply want to say...
In fact, Mr. Baptiste, I saw a project announced for the VG Roads, and I said to myself, that must be a mistake. They probably spelled VG, they meant to spell it as VJ. Because I knew that the VJ road had been down for rehabilitation. It was a farm road, very important for the community of VJ as well, of course. And it was part of, I think, a much broader Kuwaiti-funded project which had been stopped. So I thought maybe that now that, we're seeing roads, that road was actually being done. But until I drove to VG and I actually saw that it was actually the VG roads and not the VJ road.
Yes, well, actually, the Minister Ezekiel Joseph confirmed in the Parliament about 2 sittings ago that when they got into government, there were about 7 roads, which were on the cards, being designed and so on to be built in Vieux-Fort North. And he went to the Prime Minister and they stopped it. That is on the records in Parliament. He said they stopped the Vieux-Fort North roads. And these roads, did receive a no objection from the Kuwaiti fund, and I have the document. And these projects were stopped. So the clear message for the United Workers' Party is we are going to make you suffer. And Minister Guy Joseph said it in the Parliament. If it's for that, you cry. You cry, and you just start to cry. But just to say that the people of Vieux-Fort North, in the coming period, Calix, it's very important as soon as we win the general elections for us to put the people to work, because this COVID-19 pandemic has put so many people out of work in Vieux-Fort North, and of course in St. Lucia, that Honorable Philip J.P. as Prime Minister would obviously care for the people who are suffering, and we will get projects to put people to work. I mean, the government is spending $600 million to refurbish the terminal and the airport project, another $40 million in contracts, another $50 million to another contractor. They receive almost $400 million to fight COVID, and the people of Vieux-Fort North, and so many of them, cannot get assistance. So the first thing we would do is to ensure that we have a number of small and medium-sized projects, so that small contractors, medium-sized contractors, not only the massive contractors who can do $40 million worth of work, can have small projects going on all around Vieux-Fort North. The other thing we would do is to ensure that we assist the farmers and the fishers, so that the pressure will be eased off them, so that they can get some breathing space. The other entrepreneurs throughout Vieux-Fort North, the bus drivers, for example, who have been under pressure, when we get into government, we will immediately assist these bus drivers, so that they will get some pressure off them, so that they can operate their businesses in a more in a way which would give them some space to spend some money and to feed their families. We have to deal with the problems, continue to deal with the problems of land in Pierrot, in Opicon, and in Bois-Bleke, and in Larituette, and in Grace, and in Vevacel, in Belleville. It cannot be a situation where just next door you have DSH having all of this land in a failed project, and right next to us in Opicon, the government is selling land to people at $10 a square foot. And individuals who have occupied the land generations after generation after generation are being charged, whether it's $5 or $8. Farmers are being asked to relocate and so on. So the land issues at Larituette and so on must be looked into. Our children, Calix, those children must get devices. So many parents in Vieux-Fort North are asking me whether we can help them to get a tablet, to get a laptop for their child. And this government stopped this program. And look at what's happening to children now with COVID-19. And I rather suspect, Alex, this will not change even though the children go back to school, you will begin to see mixed mode education because that's the way the world is going. And a caring government would assist these parents. So the parents of V4 North can look forward when we win the elections, can look forward to their children getting tablets and getting laptops. Our elderly, look at what has happened to the elderly care program. I'm just hearing recently that another 3 or 4 individuals, their contracts will not be renewed in the elderly care program. They stopped the NICE program where we had people in the elderly care program. We had young men and young people from V4 North cleaning the playing fields. And now it's just one individual, I believe, who's cleaning all the playing fields. And so we would bring back some of these programs to create employment among the young people of V4 North. So for me, the most, I know the time is almost up, but for me, Calix, the most important thing in the next term of government, I've been a parliamentarian for close to 15 years, but only 4.5 years in government. And therefore, the experience of the United Workers' Party squeezing us and pressuring us in our constituency is not new. But as soon as we get in, Honorable Philip JPA has pledged that the first thing we are going to look at is employment. We have the youth economy program where young people in V4 North who have talents and skills, and whether it be people in electronics or people in theater, people painters and people in construction, if you have talent and skills and you can create your own business, we are going to help you with finance. We are going to help you with equipment. We are going to help you with tools so that you can continue to employ yourselves. And who knows, down the road, you are employing 2 or 3 people. And we have checked it. There are over 125 entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs in V4 North. And just imagine when the Labour Party government helps them, you have another 100 people being employed. And that is the kind of thing we will do. So employment important, the issues of land very important, laptops and devices for our children in school. And there are other things like training, which will become very important, and the participation of our people in tourism and creating employment through the development of our sites in V4 North. We are pristine, very, very green, very eco-friendly kind of constituency. We want it to remain like this. We want it to remain like this, but at the same time creating employment within the new economies that are developing, the blue economy, the CMOS farmers of V4 North, of Opicon, who are using the jetty which we built with funds from the Taiwanese government for the first time when we were in government. And all of these things, kayaking and so on, the young people of V4 North, the elderly, and there's a new program that will be coming. I know so many elderly people in V4 North who have skills, and because they're retired, they're just home, and we're not using the talents and the knowledge and the skills. Just imagine a day in the constituency when the elderly people, the Wasis, and Wasis are kind of young guy, but we have so many elderly people, Marajahs, and all of these people who know the culture and the history, and you employ them. You employ them, whether it be part-time to go to the preschools and to go to the schools to teach the people about how they grew up and to, So I'm very excited about the next general election. I'm very excited. I know the people of V4 North are waiting. They're waiting for the elections. We are working very hard. We are not taking anybody or anything for granted. We are working very hard to explain to the people how this government really doesn't care about them, and that we will put the people first. We will put their needs first. And especially as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, we look after our farmers, our fishers, the bedrock of our community, the youth, the elderly, and to ensure that the Solution Labour Party lifts this country, not only V4 North, with Honorable Philip JPA, the leader whom you can trust, to lift this country out of the malaise and the foolishness that we see this government is doing.
Mr. Baptiste, we're going to have to end it there. Thanks very much. I know